Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm going to take a look at Pop OS. Yes, Pop OS is something I haven't taken a look at in quite a while, and I thought it was about time to do it again. This is an OS distro that is put out by System76. System76 creates a line of laptops and desktops that are available with the operating system already pre-installed, and the hardware is optimized just for this distro. Pop OS is based on Gnome, and it's an edition that I've always kind of had a little bit of a soft spot for because they got a lot of unique features. Even here on the desktop, they show how you can streamline your workflow. You can customize it. It's got auto tiling with the Pop shell, which is cool. Workspaces, of course, keyboard navigations and shortcut, and even stacking where you can stack your application windows atop another, just like tabs in a web browser. Also, it's a great environment for using development tools for deep learning, engineering, bioinformatics, media production. So all this stuff can be done very easily on Pop OS. It seems that the distro and the kernel is just optimized for just such things. And if we scroll down a little bit farther here, it actually showcases some of the hardware that is available with Pop OS to make the form of an amazing computer, as they say. So that is pretty cool. Now, I don't own any of the hardware, so I can't really go and show you any of the hardware aspects of it, but I can get into the OS itself. And then some of the other features they kind of mention are the hybrid graphics capabilities, where you can be in a battery saving mode or high power mode. And then gaming, it's really optimized for that and supports Steam, Lutris, and GameHub Create. So you can create an incredible gaming experience and even a do not disturb mode there, which I kind of like. So you can get rid of any and all notifications for however long you like. So if you're like doing a screencast, like I just happen to be right now, that can come in really handy. And then dark mode, that's kind of where I live most of the time on screen. So I like the dark mode. It's easy on the eyes and none of that blinding whiteness in the background. And also Pop is made for the Raspberry Pi 4. How cool is that? So this is a really well-known, well-polished, and maybe even quite famous distro. Famous like me, because last week I was on CNN, yes, national television. So it kind of reminds me of me and Pop were alike.
His morning, while his attorney in the documents investigation entered the grand jury to testify against him. I mean, that is an unprecedented thing that we're seeing. And Evan Corcoran is in a position to provide unbelievably damaging testimony against him. Presumably that happened today. And now 8 of his closest advisors have been told they cannot rely on
Yeah, they never had me do any commentary though. I'm not quite sure why. There must have been some technical difficulties. I don't know. But they'll have me back because when Caitlin Collins said, don't ever contact them again, I knew I was in. You know, they love you when they're playing hard to get. All right, so let's move on. Let's download this baby. I'm going to go up here to the download button. I'm going to hit this, download it, load it in, and we'll be right back. All right, here I am loading in the live image here for Pop OS. And this will just take a second to get booted in, and then we'll see what's up. So it's kind of loading all the cool stuff. And by the way, this is an Ubuntu-based distro here, in case I didn't mention that. So it is modified using the Gnome desktop, but it is modified heavily for the Pop look and feel. That's one thing I like about it. It doesn't have all those Gnome restrictions. All right, here we are in our desktop. So we got in here and install Pop OS is not responding. Wow. There we go. Okay. Just had a little glitch, but it's okay. So here's our installer here. Popped right up and beautiful look. Wow. They even have the panel going all the way across. Some reason I remember it not going all the way across, and I kind of like this look even better if I'm remembering right. Otherwise, it was always like that. So anyway, and of course we have our top panel up here showing our workspaces and applications and so forth. So, and then the classic branded wallpaper in the back, which looks like it has a really nice, maybe new look too. I like the purplish color there. Very cool. So I'm just going to jump right in and install this, and it's defaulting in English, so that works for me. Going to select, and then United States also works for me. So we'll hit that, and then our default is English. Here we have our clean install or a custom advanced install. So if you want to install this alongside something else, or you have a separate partition for your home folder that you want to work with, then you can go with a custom, but I'm just going to go with a clean. That's going to just wipe everything on the drive and then just set it all up for me. That's the easiest way to go if you don't have to worry about losing data or any special conditions there. So I'm going to go with clean install, and then I'll just select the device here, which is the virtual hard drive, 65 gigs. I'm going to hit erase and install, and then it's going to erase everything. And now let's just give it a full name here. So the full name, you can use an uppercase letter, and I'm just going to use like Toadwick, and it'll duplicate it down here under the username, but it'll be in lowercase because you need to have all lowercase for an actual username. And then I'll hit next. And now let's give it a password and another password, and we'll hit next. And then here's an option to encrypt the drive, and you can use an encryption password if you like. And right now by default, it is the same as a user account, and I'll keep it at that. And I'm good with encrypting it, I suppose. What drive encryption can do for you is if you had this on a laptop and you lost your laptop and someone else took it and they decided to take your drive out, maybe because they can't log into it, so they took the drive out and plugged it into something to copy your data off, they wouldn't be able to get to it because it's encrypted. So that's kind of the advantage of it. Or if it got stolen, same scenario. So we'll go with encrypt. I'm going to hit that. And there we go, we're off. It's partitioning the drive, and now it's going to do its stuff and all that. And it shouldn't take too long to install. When it's all done installing, I'll be back. Okay, the install is completed. So that didn't take very long. And I'm just going to hit restart device here. And we'll restart it, boot right in, and hopefully it worked. Okay, so booting back in. And with luck, we'll see a menu here or something. Ah, here we go. Oh, unlock the disk. Okay, that must be the encryption there thing going on. So I'll just type in a password, and that'll set up the crypt data. And I think that's a one-time thing there, just to get your encryption set up for first-time usage. And after that, you shouldn't see that screen again. But now the drive will be encrypted, so your data is much more protected. Yes. And now it flipped upside down. So that means it's probably ready to continue booting. All right, here we go. We got our Toadwick login here. So I'm just going to hit that and then log right in. And beautiful look right off the bat. Right at the login screen, it already looks great. So I'm going to just bring this in. You can tell it's really got a lot of polish to it. Loving it. So here we go, and it's just coming in. And we should be seeing the desktop most anytime. And there we go. There's our welcome screen showing that system updates are available. We can click there to see them, and no time like the present. So let's click on it. Well, I'm not seeing them yet, so I guess I'll just come back to that. Let's start out with the welcome to Pop! OS. So here we got the desk set up here, and we can continue by choosing our preferred layout. So this is kind of cool. You can have no dock, so if you select that, and it updates dynamically, I like that too. So there's the no dock look, and then the dock that we had here that extends to edges, and then the dock that doesn't extend. So if you kind of like the Mac kind of feel, that is a little bit more Mac-like maybe, possibly Windows 11, or this one actually. And I kind of like the dock extending to the edges. I don't know, maybe that's the traditionalist in me for desktops, but you know. So let's hit next. So here we can configure our top bar a bit. So here it's showing, we can show workspaces button, which is over here. And that's where we can kind of switch between workspaces, which is nice. I like that. Also the applications button, which is here. And I like that too, that it's right handy there. So I'm just going to leave those both on, but you can turn them off by simply toggling the switches here. And then of course your date and time notification position, which is right here in the center. But if you prefer that on either the left or the right, you can just select one of those options and it'll put it on either side over here. Some people don't like it in the middle here, so this is a nice alternative. If you happen to be one of those, I'm okay with it in the center though, so I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to hit next. And here we can open and switch our applications from the launcher. Wow! So if you press the super key, you can access that. And when you press it, you get this little window here. And this is a launcher where you can just directly type something in here, like LibreOffice maybe. And then you get all the LibreOffice stuff here. If I wanted calc specifically, I could just type in calc and there it is. So that is the launcher itself. And so again, that is opened up just by pressing the super key. And if I press super A, that'll bring up the whole menu like you have up here, the applications launcher. So let's go next. And here, talking about using gestures for navigation. So you can even use four-finger swipe left, open, all that. So Gnome is really great with gestures. And so I got to give it to them on the gesture thing. Here we can change our appearance. By default, it's in the dark mode, which is where I like it. Oh, you crossed over to the dark side. And of course, the light mode, which is also very nice if you like kind of the lighter backgrounds. So all a matter of taste. And if we hit next, here we have our privacy settings. So you can turn your location services on here if you wish. I don't mind having the location services on. For me, it's actually kind of handy if I go to Google Maps. It already sees where I'm at, or my location can be detected if I go out to an online store like Home Depot or Walmart.com or something like that. It'll hone in on the nearest store next to me. And so those are all utilized by location services, things like that. Or if you're looking for a pizza place nearby, those are all kind of handy. So personally, I turn it on my computer, but I like the idea that they give you the choice, because if you're somebody that doesn't want those location services available, you can set that up right off the bat. So very nice feature. And then here's our time zone. And it looks like by default, the time zone here is somewhere over in England. I wonder how it got there. So let me go back over to New York would be the closest here for Eastern. I'll just hit next. And then here we can connect our online accounts. So if you have online accounts that you like to have, that you kind of interact with, like Google, Nextcloud, Microsoft, Flickr, Foursquare, Exchange, all that good stuff, and even IMAP, SMTP, and so far, and enterprise login. So wow, they give you a lot of nice choices there. Of course, I'm just going to skip all that. And then here we're all done. So I'm just going to click the Start Using Pop! OS button. And my update thing never did show me anything. So we do have a little 1 here. So that's like a little indicator that updates are available, I believe, in the Pop Shop. So I could actually do it here. Personally, I like running updates through the console, but the visual way to do it would be to just click on that little Pop Shop thing, and you can see the little icon up here just kind of spinning around. So that's kind of looking for updates again to synchronize with the repos. And that actually came up pretty fast too for a first-time launch. A lot of package managers take a while to populate the metadata and so forth, but that was fairly quick. And then here we got our 1 popping up again. If I click on installed, then it shows our installed applications and a button to update all or update individually. So here we can kind of get an idea right at first glance what's installed. So we have our weather app and LibreOffice, Network Manager, videos, Pinion, cool. I like that. The Pinion is nice to have on there, and I think that's cool that's there by default. Gnome calculator. So this is all kinds of stuff, not just the applications, but all the little utilities and things that may run in the background as well. So I'm going to hit update all and just let it do its thing there. And that's a fairly nice updater, actually. I could actually be comfortable using a GUI version like this. And so now it's showing one update available. So if we click on it, then you can kind of see the details here, 11 components and so forth. And you can see the spinner up there. So it's still in the update process. I'm just going to back up here. And you can monitor the progress just by looking at the little progress bar here. And apparently everything else is up to date according to this. So nice. And while that's updating, since I have the Pop Shop open, let's just pop back to home here. And this is a really nice looking package manager, I think. And I'm guessing it's probably based on Gnome package manager there, but really beautiful. I like the layout better actually. And a lot of pop picks here and different categories below. Visual Studio Code, that's something I usually install right away. Flameshot is a nice screenshot software. Lutris for video game presentations. Telegram desktop, nice. Tilix, which I believe is a GNOME tiling manager plugin. Shows some recently updated stuff, and then our categories. So we have audio, communication, finance, education, development, accessories, graphics, fun and games, internet, and even more. So fantastic. And where I spend most of my time, I guess, are probably under graphics, multimedia, or in this case, I got it separated with audio as well. So if I went into here, we could probably find things like Audacity and maybe LMMS, some of the more professional sound editing studios. And here we are. So all kinds of great things, even Adobe Flash Player. Wow, there's something I haven't seen in a while. That is cool. I remember a long time ago, the very first video game I ever made was done in Adobe Flash. And I think I used their builder. I forgot what it was called. Flash Builder, I think. And so it required the Flash Player. I bet if I installed that, I could actually look at it. Maybe. I don't know. It's so old. It probably won't even work with that. And then we got Audacity and Beta Radio Tuner. That's cool. An easy way to listen to Internet Radio of Taiwan. Wow. I am liking that. I'm going to install that. And I just installed Audacity as well. So here it's asking for a password. So I'm just going to do that. And let's see if that password works for everything. I've seen in some rare cases, some package managers will prompt you for the password every time you install something while you have it open. That's no fun. But it looks like this one is not like that, so that's good. So these are all kinds of things, and you can also use the search if you just want to find something quicker here. And then if we just backtrack, we can do the same thing. We got games, media production. So if you wanted something like Kden Live, OBS Studio, you can find those right in here. And typically I use Kden Live when I make videos. So this is the next stop where I would normally go if I was going to install this as a daily driver. And again, you got a little bit of lag time here while it's going into the new category because these are being populated for the first time. So again, it's got to load in that metadata. But if I were to go out of here and then just jump back in, you'll go right in like that. Right in like that. Okay, forgot what I said about populating the metadata and first time stuff. Okay, it's back. Wow. Okay, so under multimedia, it's also including our Audacity here, showing the status. I like that. That's cool. And then we got other stuff here. FAMI Studio, which is an NES music editor. Cool. Flowblade, that's a cool video editor. That's something I played with in the past. Kind of nice to see that right there on the store. And then, of course, if I wanted to just find something specifically like Kden Live, I can just type it right in here in the search window, and it just comes right up as you're typing. So then I can just select it and do the install if I wished. And then by clicking the burger menus, you get easy access for checking updates, or you can press Control R for the shortcut. And then you can even view your software sources with Control S. I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut and see if that works. Control S. And there it is. Nice. So here we go. These are our official sources that are added in here. And as you can see, it's hooked into the community maintain and the proprietary drivers for devices, which are the restricted repositories, all activated by default, which is nice. And then software with copyright or legal restrictions from the multiverse, and developer options. So you can even check that, click that little drop down there and see what type of developer options, if any, you might want to enable. Including the source code is enabled by default, but you could also put in pre-release updates like jammy proposed stuff. Cool. And then of course our updates tab, and this kind of shows us the type of updates that we can enable. And I would always go with the default personally on these. And then our extra sources. So we got our app, popos.org release and proprietary branches, and then our flat packs. So here we got it hooked into FlatHub automatically, and that is nice to see right out of the box. So if I was to click on the Kden Live editor here, you can see right underneath the title, we got a FlatHub option here. And so FlatHub is going to give us our most up-to-date version of Kden Live in this instance, which is what my choice would be personally. The date on it is March 2nd, 2023. So that's the last, probably the most current release date. But you can also go and install it from the Ubuntu Debian repositories, or the Ubuntu, it's a Debian file. And so this would give you the version straight from the repository, which would not be the newest, I'm fairly certain. So this would probably be a couple versions behind. But if you're worried about stability, then you can go with the older version straight from the Ubuntu repository. And personally, I like installing things from the repositories as a preference if it's on par with the FlatHub version. But that's usually kind of rare. So when it comes to some vital things for me, like Kden Live or OBS Studio, I would probably go with the Flatpak versions myself, just because I like being really up to date with software. But that's not important for everybody. It really depends on the situation that you're installing the operating system for. And I might as well just put in that Flatpak version there just for fun. And remember, if you want to know the status, just look at the spinner up here next to the search bar here. And that spinner will let you know that it is still installing. And now it's all done because we got the appearance now of the uninstall and the open button. So we can open it right here, but I'm just going to jump into my applications, pressing Super A. There's our beta radio tuner. Audacity, we installed that recently. And then Kden Live should be right there. There it is. Nice. So those are our recent stuff there. And then of course we got our categories down here. So we got our office item, system, and utilities all kind of in here for quick access. But under home, I see the Kden Live showed right up. So if I were to press that, it should just open right up and we should be right into it. And there we go. Open right up. It looks great. The theming's perfect. Wow. So I am happy with that. That is looking good. Excellent. And now you might be looking down saying, hey, why is that bar down there? I want more screen space on there. Well, there's a couple things you can do. You can come up here and go to View and select full screen mode here, or use the Control-Shift-F, and that'll put you in full screen too. But if you check it, it'll just go right straight into full screen, and there you go. And then Control-Shift-F will also toggle it back to not full screen. And of course, later when we get into the settings, we can also auto hide the bar down here. at the bottom, this panel. So that's another thing. So the panel will just auto hide simply when an application opens. So that's another option as well. Just going to close that. And so that's it for the package manager. Nice. So up here we got our top panel, and again, like I showed before, we got our workspaces here, applications, easy access to it if you just want to get there with a click. And then over on this side, we got tile windows, and window tiling is off right now. We got floating window exceptions, so if you're in tiling mode, but there's certain windows you don't want to tile, you can go into this exceptions here and then add in applications by hitting select here and add those applications or windows in there. So right now I don't have anything that's open, but if I had, say, our file manager open, here it'll ask us if we want to add the floating window exception. And then this will continue to float while the other ones are tiled, which is kind of cool. So I'm just going to hit cancel because I don't really want to make that an exception, but that's what that's about there. And so if I change this and turn on tiling windows, then this will automatically tile. Now we got a full window here. And now if I open up, say, my terminal, which just out of curiosity, I'm not sure what the keyboard shortcut is, but we'll look up the keyboard shortcuts in a little bit. I'm just going to click on it there. And now you can see that terminal has come over here. Now, in the beginning of the video, I was talking about the stacking command, and the stacking is really cool. So if you notice, if you have windows open here, they're side by side, and the more windows we open, the more stuff that kind of builds up. So if I was going to open something else, like if I went in here, and let's say we open Kdenlive, and now Kdenlive is down here, and we're in this kind of a tiny window here. So focus on the window over here, press Super M, and then it goes full screen. Yay! And I mean full screen in the sense that it maximizes the window. So that's really what I'm trying to say is maximize window, not full screen. So here we got our maximize window, and then again, Super M will put it back where it was. So let's take a closer look at stacking. I'm not real familiar with stacking, but Super S, I believe, will, right now I'm focused on the file manager, but press Super S, and then it adds this to the stack. And then if I wanted to put something else in the stack, like let's say Kdenlive, I can come over here and then select it, press Super S again, and now that's added to the stack. Okay, so now if I want to move this in or out of the stack, like I'm on Kdenlive now, I think what you do is press Super Enter, and that'll highlight the window, and then I can just use the arrow key, like the left arrow key, and it should push it over to the file manager stack over there. And I just kind of slid it over there actually with my mouse. So I pushed it over. Now you'll notice we have two tabs here. So we got our home and our Kdenlive. So now we can have something bigger here. So now our windows are much bigger. So if we have three things open, we can still have our console over here. And then these are all in the stack. Or I could put them all in the stack. So I could come over back over to our console, press Super Enter, press Super S. Well, actually, let me click up on the window bar there. I could take the console and let's try dragging it over here. It's not actually added to the stack yet, so I would have to add this to the stack, maybe by pressing Super Enter, then Super S. Nope, that's going into the console. Ah! Well, okay, yeah, that's kind of weirded out because of the terminal. It just wants to record all your hotkeys, I guess. So maybe it's just easier to close the terminal like that. And I think when you have the stack here with the tabs, when you open up an application like the terminal, it should just automatically add it into the stack here. So let's try that. So I'm going to open up the terminal. And the terminal I don't think has a keyboard shortcut by default. But I'm going to click that. And it did. It added it to the stack. So this stacking thing is really cool. I like this because now instead of having to manually maximize the windows, I can just use the stack here and get a pretty maximized window right off the bat. And then if I really want to maximize it to the max, I can just press my Super M key and then it'll bring it up and give me even a little more view pixels. So that's cool. And then Super M again, and that'll kind of expose our stack, our tabs again. So I really like that. Also, another way to toggle between tabs is you can press Super Arrow, like Super Left Arrow, and then you'll toggle back to home. Super Right Arrow will let you switch through the different tabs to your right. So really easy to do that. You don't even have to click those if you don't want to. And then to remove them from the stack, I believe, like, for example, if we select the Kden Live, if I press Super S again, it should take that out of the stack, I believe. And so now if I went back to tiling mode, which I forgot what that was. Super Y. There we go. Well, that put us back into tiling mode anyway. If I hit Super Y again, then I'm back in regular tiling mode. And so the stack is gone. And so you can tell I'm kind of an amateur with the keyboard shortcuts with Pop! OS. So I probably didn't get out of it in the most graceful manner. But, you know, that's kind of the gist of it anyway. But since we're in here, I'm going to restack these again because I kind of like that stacking mode. So Super S. And I'll just drag this over to the... I can't drag right to left, but I can drag the terminal over here. Since I'm in stacking mode, it should put this in the stack, I'm thinking. So I'll just put it on top. And it didn't. Okay. Maybe not. It did reverse it, though. That was kind of cool. Oh, there it worked. Wow. So when I had the terminal over on this side, maybe that was coincidence, but it actually stacked it. So if I close this and then open File Manager again, and now we are in the File Manager tab. So it did stack. Nice. So I'll just kind of leave it on there. My brain's starting to kind of hurt with all this. But that is cool. So now I can just kind of switch back and forth. And since I'm in here, I don't think HTOP is installed, but I'll just kind of do that anyway. Let's just do top. Or actually, it's saying HTOP not found, but can be installed with sudo apt install HTOP. That's one thing I like about the apt command is that it gives you these suggestions, which is cool. And I'm just going to magnify that a bit. So I'm going to do that. In fact, instead of typing it, I'm going to be lazy. I'm going to highlight this, right click, select copy, and then right click, paste, press enter, type in my password, let that install. And so easy peasy to install on the terminal. That's kind of my preferred way anyway. Now I'll type in HTOP and here we go. And it's showing about 2.1 gigs here. Of course, I have the file folder open as well, the file manager, and I've been running stuff on the virtual. But with all that said, typically Gnome is going to be somewhere in the 1.2 plus range anyway. Gnome does take more resources, but if you want to compare it to Windows, it's still a fraction of what Windows uses. So if you have anything that's even remotely modern as a computer, then Gnome should run absolutely fine. So I'm going to press Control-C to stop that. And let's take a look at our settings. So I'm going to close that, and I'm going to actually turn off the tiling. Again, your hotkey would be Super Y. And of course here you can just simply uncheck the button here, slide it back over, and that'll also turn off your tiling or toggle it on and off. And now we're back to floating. So I can just kind of shrink that down and it's all good. So let's see what we got under our settings here. I'm just going to click this guy and let our settings panel come up. And so here we got our network by deep as our first choice here by default. It kind of starts there. And you can see it's connected to wired. Then we got our Bluetooth settings, desktop settings if we come over here. We got our super key action. So here you can change that. So right now if I press super key, it simply brings up our launcher and we can type in whatever you want. But if you prefer your super key to open up your applications menu, we can change it right here. And now when I press the super key, it opens up our applications. So if that's something you want to have direct access to through the super key, here's the place to change it. And then of course workspaces, if you want to use it just to access workspaces, we can do that, press super key, and then our workspace switcher comes up instead. So that's kind of cool. I kind of like the default, but my other choice actually would be the applications. I think I could see myself using that a lot there because I don't mind using my mouse a bit. And then you can enable hot corners for your workspaces. And then your show workspaces button. You can turn those on and off. We actually accessed that area in the beginning of the video there when we were at the welcome screen. And then our Windows control. So you can see right now, for some strange reason, Gnome likes to have only your minimize and your close button. And they always like to seem to hide your maximize button, which to me is kind of a mystery because I like them all. But the good thing is they give you a choice. So I like that. Choice is kind of rare in Gnome. So when you get a choice, I'm going to take it. So just toggle that button and now you got all three here. Minimize, maximize, and close. So very cool. Then over here, background. So here we can change our background if you want a change of scenery. I really like the default Pop OS, the purple branded, but looks like there's some really nice wallpapers in here though. I could select this and get a shot of the moon. And I haven't been there in a while, at least a few months. And some nice space pictures here. And very cool artwork. And that is moderately cool. And this, nice background. I kind of like that. I might actually maybe kind of go with something like that. Or this. Seems to kind of trigger some memories from somewhere. And then here's where we change our theme settings where we were before. Our dock settings. Now this is a little more detailed than the dock settings we were in at the welcome screen setup. So here, in addition to extend dock to the edges of the screen, or enable dock, we can also show workspaces and applications and even mounted drives right down here in our dock. And those can all be toggled on and off here. And then our icon click action to cycle through windows and our visibility. So this is where I was talking about earlier. We can always hide our dock or intelligently hide it. And then even choose the display that we want our dock on, which by default is a primary. But if we want to intelligently hide our dock, then our dock will still show up until we maximize a window. So if I maximize my file manager here, then the dock will disappear. So now you get that extra real estate back, which is nice. And then you can always hide the dock as well, which means that the dock is never visible until you bring your arrow down to the bottom of the screen. And yeah, kind of got us have something else focused, I think. Well, okay. But I'm not getting it. Maybe I got to go out of settings. I might regret that. I'm going to regret it. Okay, so yeah. That's all right. I'll just go back into settings. I pressed my super key because I changed it. Normally that would be super A. And so we'll go back into settings and I'll just kind of change that back to always visible. But intelligently hide is actually a good option too. So we'll go with that. And then here we can adjust our dock size. So we can actually make this smaller if we want. Right now it's a medium at 48 pics, but we can mellow that out a little bit just by clicking this option. And then that'll kind of back it off a bit. Or we can use a custom size down here and we can shrink it down this way. So we could actually bring this and make it a little smaller. Personally, I kind of like it somewhere right around 30, but it's all a matter of taste. And I forgot where it was by default, but I think I'll change it to small here, which kind of looks nice. And then you can even position your desktop. So bottom of the screen, or we can go over to the left side, which is nice. And that'll put it over here, or the right side if you like the right side. Cool. But we'll just go with the bottom there. And then you can also align your icons center, or you can have it over on the right-hand side for where the start is, or the end of the bar. So lots of options here with Pop! OS. And then of course you got your workspaces here, dynamic by default, but if you want a fixed number, maybe you want 4 workspaces, you can select this and you'll have 4, or you can just have 5, 6, 7, and so on. So you can just choose all your workspaces right there if you like to have a lot of different workspaces to work with. And then with multi-monitors, you can have your workspaces span displays, which is default, but if you only want them on your primary display, you can select that here too, which is cool. And then the workspace picker, which is this guy, is by default on the left-hand side here, but you can also change that to the right side just by selecting this guy. And now it's over here. Easy peasy. So let's go back. Then we have our applications here. We can turn on our notifications on and off here in our application settings. Here's our privacy settings. So this is where we can turn off our location services. Connectivity checking is enabled by default. But our location services, if you had regret on activating it, or if you didn't activate it and regretted it, here's where you can turn it on and off, right here, under privacy. And then our Thunderbolt settings, which is related to email, I think. And then we got our file history and trash settings. So here we can show file history or not show it if you don't want it showing up there. Automatically delete your trash content if you don't want it to be in the dustbin there forever. And then we got our screen lock settings. If you don't like the screen lock, you can change it to never, or just increase the time. And personally, I turn off the screen lock settings and all that, and the lock screen. But if you're in a work environment or some situation where you don't want other people getting on your computer when you walk away, then the lock screen is actually a good idea. Then, of course, our online account settings where we were before. Sharing settings. So if you want to be able to remote desktop into your desktop or have other people do it, here's where you can turn on your screen sharing and then activate your remote desktop or share your media. So maybe you want to share some files in some of your folders. So this is where all this happens here. You can turn all these on, and you even have some default file folders where you can share by default here or add your own. Very feature rich. Then of course we got our sound settings here where you can set your volume levels and your output and input devices if you have microphones and stuff like that hooked up. Then your power settings. I got screen blanking set to never for by default. And then we got our screen display. If you need to change your resolution, this is the place to do it. Mouse and touchpad. By default, of course, your left click mouse button is going to be your default, but if you're a lefty, then you can switch it over to your right button. And you can always test your settings right here. And then you got your double click showing up, single click, right click, single, right click, double. So, and then of course you scroll your mouse wheel and it'll roll the picture up and down. So that's how you can test all that. And then your keyboard settings. This is where you can set your keyboard shortcuts. So if you want to go in here and assign a keyboard shortcut, for example, for the console, then we can select launchers here. And you can see the terminal is in here and it's showing Super T. Let's see if that actually works. And it does. So that is already set. I just didn't know the keyboard shortcut to it. But if I wanted to change that for some reason, I could go in here and change that to something else like Super T and a half. No, I'm kidding. But you could actually change your keyboard shortcut just by selecting that and then press another key combination and it'll automatically put it in there. I'm going to cancel it though, because I think Super T is just fine. And then of course, if you want to find out what keyboard shortcuts are, this is kind of one way you can find out too, like for your Windows. To maximize a window, I believe it's Super M. But if you didn't know that, you could go down here and here we got maximize window or right here, which is disabled. But that's not the shortcut key you want to use if you want to toggle maximization, because this will only maximize it, but it won't minimize it. But if you toggle it, it would be down here and you would have toggle maximization state, which is Super M. So that means it can go maximize and then press Super M again, and then it'll go back down to where it was, original size. So there's a difference between toggle maximization state and maximize. All right. So keyboard stuff. And then we got our printer settings finally. So we'll close out of that. Let's scroll down a little more. So here we got printer settings. There's where you can add your printers in. And additional printer settings in case you have a stubborn printer. You might need to find a PPD file or something that you can associate it with. And that should kind of solve printer problems. And firmware settings, language, accessibilities, users. Give yourself an avatar here. Make it more interesting. I kind of like the guitar. That's kind of cool. Actually, that looks like a bass guitar there. 4 strings. And then our default apps. So, for example, if I wanted to change my video player, if I had VLC installed, I could select VLC right here, and then that would be my default video player. And then our date and time settings. And our time format, so it can be AM, PM, or 24-hour. I kind of like 24-hour. And I forgot to show you before when I was exploring the top panel that when you click on that, you got your calendar, which is cool. I like the calendar. And a do not disturb setting, so you can turn off notifications for a while, especially if you're screencasting. And in your calendar, you can add events here. So no events today, but you could go to another day like the 31st. And select your calendar and just add an event by double clicking and call it a new event like dentist appointment. And then you got a couple of categories here. Personal, it looks like, is the category. And then you can just add it in there. And there it is. And if you want to do more details, you can actually right click and edit that. And you can add more things in here. You can stick a location in there, like it's in Naples, Florida. You got to fly all the way down there. And you can put in the time and all that here too. So you can get really specific with your calendar stuff, which is really kind of cool. And of course, you got your other views here too. You can view by week and by year. So you can kind of zoom out there. Really nice calendar. And the other cool thing is the weather can show up down here. And so if I wanted to select a weather location, and nice weather app actually, showing 82 degrees, cool. With a possible thunderstorm at 2100. And then we got our daily here, so you can kind of zoom out and see the daily here for the next several days. So nice little touch. I like the fact that we got that weather app at a glance when we select our clock, and we can kind of see all this other stuff here. So that's really kind of cool. Then here we can do an easy OS upgrade if Pop! OS comes up with a new upgrade there. And so that makes it kind of easy. Ubuntu-based things, they're not rolling releases, so this is kind of a nice way to kind of do that. And here we could set it up for automatic updates and so forth. Then we got our support version here. Kind of shows us a little bit of documentation on how to get to the community support and so forth. And you can browse your documentation from here, which is very good. And actually what it's based on, which is Ubuntu 22.04 LTS, but it's heavily modified for Pop! OS. And then, of course, the About, which gives you all the little details about your computer, and the Gnome version, which is currently 42.5 on Pop!, our X11 Windows system, and so forth. 69 gigs and 6 gigs of RAM assigned to this. Excellent. We were in our show apps before, and just a couple things I didn't hit there was we got our USB flasher, which is nice for flashing a USB drive. So a few utilities here, our workspace, launcher, our image viewer by default is likely a Gnome viewer. And I don't really have any images on here by default, so but if I click our burger menu and hit About, then we can see that it is the Gnome image viewer. So kind of nailed that, just like this is Gnome files based on Nautilus there, I believe. Same thing, I believe. And then here we got our extensions, so we can click on that and get quick access to our extension manager. And that kind of shows us the stuff that helps us get our look here for Pop! OS, such as the Cosmic Dock, the workspaces, gestures, desktop icons. So we can have icons available here, which normally you don't get in Gnome by default. And the Cosmic interface components in the Pop! Shell is really fantastic. And you can even go in the settings here and tweak these guys. And for top bar and all that, they recommend you go into settings to do that. But for your Pop! Shell, here you can turn on and off your window titles, snap to grid, which works in floating mode, smart gaps, allow the launcher over full screen window, and so on and so forth. So you can really get in here and tweak. Of course, I typically just stick with the defaults on these kind of things. But it's nice to see all these different kind of options. And then Ubuntu app indicators, the whole works. And then, of course, you can turn off all the extensions if you wish, just by clicking that, and they'll all turn off. So if you have some kind of weird problem with your system, you can kind of turn off the extensions and see if you can rule out an issue with the extensions. So very nice, very versatile, and actually like that wallpaper. That's kind of cool. And I never did finish over here. I never got past the tiling windows. I forgot to look at the other stuff. But here we got a quick reference to our shortcuts. So here we can see toggle tiling windows as super Y key, navigate, super arrows, which we did, and our launcher is just simply super. And then show window titles up in our title bar, show active hint. What an active hint is it shows us which window is active. So if I got a couple windows open here, and let's say I open up our terminal, and you're not really quite sure which one is active, we can go up here and toggle show active hint, and then it'll highlight this. So now we can see clearly which one is the active window. So that can be kind of nice if you get confused with which window is active. And you can even change the color. So if you like a different color, you can go in here and make it something else, like maybe purplish or violet color, and select that. And now you would have a violet. Not as easy to see though if you got this kind of wallpaper, but you can make them almost any color you want. And the default was actually kind of nice. I was good with the default. So I'll kind of go back that way, even though I don't know the exact color, but it was kind of cool. I'll make it kind of yellowish there. And then the border radius, you can crank that up. And the border radius makes it rounder. So there you go, nice round borders, or if you want it more squared off, we can go back to the default 5 or bring it all the way down, it'll be even more square. Cool. And then we got gaps. And then of course here, if we click over here, then we got our wired connected and easy access to our settings and power off, log out. So here we can log out, restart, shut down, suspend, and all that as well. So I'm going to close that, jump out of here, and I think that's going to cover it. So time for my 2 cents. This Pop OS, normally I wouldn't touch Gnome. I'm not a Gnome person. I think Gnome is great for the right people. It's just something that doesn't fit in with my taste. However, Pop OS changes the whole game when it comes to Gnome. If I was going to design Gnome, this is how I would design it. Of course, I have a different vision than the Gnome team, and the Gnome team understandably wants something different than all the other desktops. So it would be kind of boring if everything looked the same, right? So not faulting Gnome at all for going the way that they go. And from what I've heard, they're actually listening to their community a little bit better with the Gnome 44, which I might touch upon in the future. So that's encouraging news. Pop, as usual, did not disappoint again. I think this system is excellent to install on just about anybody's computer that wants to get away from Windows. And I think this would be one of the least intimidating or a lesser intimidating transition from Windows to Linux for most people. I think just about anybody could adapt to this very quickly. If it was somebody that was a little more savvy, you could give them tiling Windows and you'd have a very dependable environment. No 3 a.m. calls in the middle of the night from Grandma Tilly saying, hey, I can't check my email. So yes, it is definitely a first-class choice, and I just love the theming in Pop OS. I think the icons and everything are just gorgeous in here. And I don't think I would really want to change a thing. I think Pop OS right out of the box, just the way it is great. You know, Gnome is not really where you want to go if you want to do heavy customization in the theming department anyways. That's more of a KDE and maybe XFCE kind of thing. But, you know, this is kind of like perfect just the way it is. Having a laptop or a computer or something like that with Pop OS on it, I would use it just the way it is. I'd be perfectly fine with it. And I just don't have any complaints. I really didn't find any flaws except maybe the terminal there where, you know, it was kind of intercepting my keyboard shortcut when I was trying to mess with the stacking mode there and window tiling. But then again, I'm not that familiar with it, so it could have just been me. But it seems to me it should have kind of worked, and that part didn't. But that's something that can't be fixed in an update, I'm sure. Or fixed by me getting a little more educated with using it. So with that, I hope this review was helpful, and if it was, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.